What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. It's a late night view once again. It's an earlier late night view. We were just talking about this beforehand. We always say, like, with a late night view, because usually it's around like 7 p.m. We usually say, like, it's late somewhere. This time it is late somewhere. It's 6 p.m. over here in the UK. This kind of a late night / evening view, bit of an appetizer for whatever you're going to do with your night. But look, it's late somewhere. It's late somewhere, and that's the brand, unfortunately. but there's plenty to talk about today. There is a lot to talk about actually today. We're talking about Marcus Rashford. We're going to talk about some the Glazers and share prices. Yeah. We're doing economics today, guys. This got serious.
Economics,
that's why, that's why Jack's wearing his glasses. He's been smart tonight.
Yeah, I know. I feel smart. Yeah, it's mainly because I literally can't see, and I've got some stats and facts about the Glazers, so that's why I'm.
Oh yeah,
I come prepared, man.
I love it. Love it. Love it. I think we're going to have, speaking of stats, I think we're going to have Cam join us later on as well. So what a perfect segue. But as always, we're joined by Jack and DJ tonight. We're going to start off talking about Marcus Rashford, because I'm sure you've probably seen, we saw it on the thumbnail, definitely. Marcus Rashford is returning because Marcus Rashford scored twice today in a behind closed doors 3-0 victory against Blackburn Rovers. That's been reported by a variety of people, Laurie Whitwell, etc. So I'll start off with you, Jack. How important do you think Marcus Rashford is going to be to United this season? Is he like a new signing?
Well, it's going to be very, very interesting. I put a question up on Twitter literally just now. I'm just seeing the replies off it about if people actually think that Marcus will have an impact when he comes back, more so than he did when he was playing. He had a lot of burnout towards the end of last season. We knew he needed surgery. The Euros didn't help that at all. The fact that he had to play in the summer with England in such a intense environment didn't help the injury at all. We knew there was something going on. But the stats don't lie. I think I saw something the other day. I think he scored 46-something goals in the past 2 seasons for us. Playing naturally as a winger anyway, playing on the left-hand side or the right-hand side or whatever. 46 goals, I believe, in all competitions in the last 2 seasons. Like that's good numbers. You can't... For the position Marcus plays and the way he plays, he's not an out-and-out number 9, even though when he was kind of just coming in at United, he was trialled as one. And when he played for the 23s, he was playing as a number 9 and in off the left more. But obviously, he's been playing off the left when he's been in the first team. And what I want to... There's certain aspects of his game that I want to see him cut out, which I'm sure we'll talk about and I'm sure DJ will bring up now. But the blindingly obvious ones are just kind of decision making in the final third sometimes, whether he should play that killer pass or just have a shot at goal, a little bit like our wingers now. But I would have to be stupid to sit here and say that he's not going to make an impact. I think he's just going to add to the embarrassment of riches we've got going forward. And I'm really excited to see the new Marcus Rashford with the new hair. So I'm hoping the new hairstyle brings a bit of luck. I'm loving the new hair and that, like the blonde perm. But yeah, we'll have to see, Owen. But yeah, a lot of people, I'm struggling to get my words out there, but a lot of people are we're giving Rashford, I think, a bit of slander. Like, I don't want to point out, the majority of the fan base, because I think a lot of us are understanding of his situation with his injury. But I think when he wasn't, maybe he had like a poor run of form even just before his injury. And I just feel like you've got to give him time. I don't expect him to come back against Leicester, even if he starts and hit the ground running, a bit like, obviously we're talking about Sancho in a different light because he's a new signing, but Rashford could be like a new signing. That's the thing. You've got to kind of bed him in, give him time. And I'm sure we'll see a much more improved version. I feel like he's definitely been putting a lot more working on the training ground. And the fact, one more thing, just I'm on a raise Owen as well. He weren't supposed to be back until early November. And he's back now. So it shows the attitude that I know obviously it could just be down to the injury itself. But I also think a lot of that has to do with the attitude. And you can tell Marcus just wants to get back on the football pitch, playing football, doing what he loves as soon as possible.
Yeah, and we're talking, like you said, he was meant to be back in November. He's back at beginning of October, and he just scored 2 goals. I mean, by all accounts, he looked very sharp. I mean, if those pictures mean anything on social media, and I get it, social media is not real, guys, but he does look relatively sharp. Looks in good shape. So certainly going to be an interesting one. Jack kind of touched on it there, DJ. Obviously, the next game is against Leicester. There was a feeling that because he played today and because he looked so sharp, do you think we could see an appearance against Leicester, possibly even a start for Rashford?
Yeah, I think we'll see him probably come off the bench. You know what Ollie's like. I doubt Ollie's gonna put him straight in. You know what Ollie's like. Ollie will have like the best toy at Christmas when he was a kid and just not play with it next Christmas or whatever. But yeah, no, it's good to have him good to have him back. And I definitely think we'll see him as a sub. And I'm guessing what Ollie will probably do is put Martial on, start Martial again, because I think he had a good game against Everton. Start him and then bring him off for Rashford around about 60, 50 minutes, just depending on how the game goes. I'm thinking like Ollie, everything's pre-planned already. But I think we'll see him. I'm glad this is probably at the longest rest he's had since actually breaking into the first 11. And one thing about Marcus Rashford that I want to praise him on is his actual footballing education. Like, even though we say, final third, he still needs to work on his decision-making. We have to say that every season there has been a slight improvement to his game. He's made slight adjustments, whether it's been his physicality. He got pumped, like he went to the gym. He got put on that Ronaldo program that's so legendary at Manchester United, and you can see it's paid a lot of dividends. He was much stronger. Now it's a good time to have him back because he's had a long rest. He's managed to heal those niggling injuries, and I said it before, Rashford is a player that plays at 100 miles an hour. He rarely jogs. Everything is sprint-based. Everything's explosion-based. And he's going to need his body in top-notch physical condition to even play in the Premier League like that. So I'm glad he's back. It means hopefully more goals and assists for us. One thing I will say, though, is that we need to obviously just give him a little bit of time to bed back into the squad. He's been without football for a little while now. And he needs to be making those right decisions in the final third, because Ronaldo is not going to tolerate any of that stuff that he was doing in the last couple of seasons. So he does need to step up again when he comes back.
It's an interesting one when it comes to Rashford. I mean, you kind of touched on it earlier, Jack. What do you think this actually means for, say, Martial? DJ just touched on it there. Martial, obviously, he started in the last game. People were surprised he started, but he scored. With Rashford coming back, is that another headache for Ollie? I mean, do you think it'll be a case of, who would you start? I mean, assuming Martial, the knock, we don't really know what that knock is, but the knock he received, assuming that knock is fine and he's recovered from that by the time we play Leicester, who does start? Do you have to start with Martial because he scored? Or do you think, well, Rashford's coming back, he looks to be fit? I mean, which one do you even go with? Or do you go with someone else? Lingard, Sancho? There's so many options.
Well, I think if anyone was manager other than Ollie, I would say it would be solely based on form. But as we've seen with obviously Ollie persisting with McFred in midfield, he could just persist with the same team regardless. He could persist with what he did last season, bringing Rashford. Martial could have scored a hat-trick, Owen, against Everton. We could have won 4-1 and Rashford comes in against Leicester. Ollie doesn't really... I don't think anyone's going to be sitting here. I would, in fact, be more surprised. So in answer to your question about who I would start personally, I would probably, from a footballing point of view, still start Martial. Just from my belief, I think, based on form, Martial from a footballing standpoint. But I genuinely believe there is more chance of Donny van de Beek playing than Martial playing. I think Rashford straight in. I think Rashford straight in. No, I'm going out because the reason is because he's not only come back in the manner he has, but the fact Ollie's just thrown him in and he scored a couple in this friendly win today against Blackburn. I just think Ollie's not the type to just rest on his laurels. I think he knows Rashford is a better player than Martial on that left-hand side. And I think we'll see him come straight in. I know DJ said about a sub. I think he'll come in from the start because I'm thinking about our options kind of going forward. Sancho... you've got to play Greenwood on the right, like the form he's been in. Yes, past couple of games has been poor, but the form he's been in general from the right for us has been good. So for me, I'm going to put my kind of head on a stick and say that, I'd say Rashford's going to start. I think Rashford's straight in because you've got to think as well, he's in training, he's in full contact training. He's obviously played the friendly now. He must be pretty fit and raring to go because he's got another week and a half till the game. I think even if Martial did score the brace and even 3 or 4 last Saturday, he's not going to play. 4, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. We were poor. I'm not going to lie, clear-cut chances. We had about 3, so we couldn't score 4 goals anyway. But no, I'm going to put my head out there, head on the line, and say, Rashford's gonna be straight in from the start against Leicester next weekend.
Super chat from Scott says Freds needs to go on the build-up program.
He just needs to go on the general footballing program.
Yeah, he needs just to go to. Remember those like? Did you ever have that when you were younger? Those like what they have like Brazilian soccer schools. Did you ever have those?
Pana style.
Yeah, like the local sort of AstroTurf, and you went, oh, it's Brazilian soccer schools, and you saw the Brazil badge. You thought, oh, I'm going to go there. Fred's from Brazil. He needs to be going to one of his own ones.
Mate,
ridiculous.
I thought Fred was from Burton on Albion. That's where I thought he was from. Yeah, definitely not from Brazil. Definitely not from Brazil.
Nothing wrong with Burton.
Yeah, nothing wrong, but he's more Burton than he is Brazil.
Yeah, it's certainly. You mentioned this as well, DJ, before. Obviously, the big thing when it comes to Rashford at United is that we've been overplaying him, right? We've overplayed him several times, right? And that's what really has caused his injuries. Whether it's ankle ligament problems, whether it's a shoulder problem, whether it's a back problem, we've overplayed him. At this point, with the squad that we have, one, is how important is it that we manage him? And two, is there any excuse to be overplaying him anymore? Because it's not as if we don't have options now, right?
Yeah, I think the excuse Ollie used to use was, there's nobody else. But to be honest now, we have got some fantastic options. Jadon Sancho can play off the left, as we know. Martial's there. Lingard's been in a bit of good form. So there's no excuse to be overplaying Marcus Rashford. I think if we see Marcus Rashford for an extended period of time, that is because he's earned the right to be in that team, and that's because he's playing very well and he's linking up with our players and he's creating things and scoring. That's when, obviously, if we see him a lot of the time. Now, if he does start to have bad performances, if his form does drop off a little bit, if we do start seeing him hobble in certain games, there's no reason to sort of like stick with him for there to be more injuries. We can take him off and swap him out. And I think, Ollie's had a lot of criticism this season, but I have seen him sort of rotating earlier, trying to start with Martial on the left. That was a big shock to everybody and me. But I think that is good because he's trying to use the squad as much as he can. He's trying to pick players that are in a bit of good form. Obviously, if you're Van der Beek, you're not getting picked. But yeah, if you aren't going to get picked. But I'm just saying players that are in a bit of a good form. He's trying to like get them going, get Martial's season started. And just a little bit on Martial before we move on. I just think that when he scored that goal, you could see how much it meant to him. Literally, you could see how much it meant to him. He was pumping the air and he was screaming at Bruno, so happy. I've never seen him so animated in such a while. So you can tell he probably probably looks at social media a little bit, and you could tell he was low on confidence. But I think if Ollie's smart, you have Rashford there ready to come on, but you do start Martial and see if you can build on what he's got. It's not just about Rashford. We've got a squad now. So Rashford may need to bide his time before he comes back in. That's just off the top of my head there.
What would you say about the overplaying him, Jack? Do you think we need to be careful? Do we think we need to manage him better? Because I don't want to say that Rashford's injury prone, because I don't think he is. I think, again, he's just been a terrible case of being played into the ground. And it's kind of like just a problem we have with English youngsters, isn't it? So many times, it's crazy to think like Wayne Rooney and Cristiano Ronaldo, they're the same age. They're the same age. It's crazy when you think about it, isn't it? Do we have to be wary of that when it comes to Marcus Rashford and his return from this surgery? Do we need to ensure that, okay, he's broken down, the last 3 seasons in a row or 2.5 years in a row? We have to manage that better?
Oh, 100%. The guy's still in his mid-20s. Like, he's not, he's in a kind of position where he hasn't even reached like the so-called prime years of his. I personally believe I don't think he's reached the prime years of his career yet, and I think we would be stupid if we were to put him in and even more so as DJ brought up actually quite well as well, is the fact that we actually, in that position specifically, we actually have so many options on the wing. Well, I say so many, but enough options to complement Rashford being out. So I would definitely rotate. I would personally, if I was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer now, literally what I just said before, I would base it on form. I don't think Ollie thinks like that. I really don't. And there's been, to be fair, I think if any of us knew how Ollie thought, I think we'd all be, really well off, because none of us know what team he's going to pick in terms of personnel. We understand the team he's going to pick in terms of going in with Fred these plays, but I think the front four now is going to be a mystery game to game. I couldn't tell you necessarily, like, hand on heart, who's going to play next weekend, especially with the fact the international fixtures have obviously been going on over this fortnight, but also the fact that I don't think any of us had Ronaldo being dropped. Only a small minority maybe, but no, can any of us sitting here actually, hand on heart, said that we were going to play Martial on the left and Ronaldo wasn't even going to be anywhere near the starting 11 against Everton? No. So I think that just proves kind of the sporadic nature of Ollie's thinking and the fact he is a bit up and down. But I would definitely not overplay Rashford and overthink it too much, because you can just bring in the kind of attacking players we've got in for him. And I think they're good enough. I think Martial, I do agree, if he can hit a bit of goal scoring form, he's definitely good enough to come in and do more than enough to fill Rashford's place.
Cam's in. Cam, how you doing, mates? We're just talking about Rashford briefly. Of course, Rashford played in the behind closed doors game against Blackburn today, scored twice. How important do you think he'll be to United this season? And two, how important is it that we manage him and his return?
I mean, obviously he's got 40-odd goal contributions last season. It's going to be massive for us this year. I mean, we often criticise him because he's a very frustrating player to watch, but at the end of the day, his output is fantastic. You can rely on him for goals and assists. You know it's going to happen. You know he's got the pace to get in behind stretch defences, and his finishing, I mean, yes, it could use some work, but more often than not, you do back him to score when he goes through on goal. So I think it's going to be important to manage him, make sure we don't overplay him, but there's no excuse for that now. As the boys were saying, like, we've got enough options now. If you pick the players that are on form, then there's no excuse for him getting burnt out like he has before.
I would tend to agree. This is an interesting one because it comes to the Glazers and the selling of shares. Now, again, forgive me because I am far from a stock market expert when it comes to this. So if I get this slightly wrong, don't blame me. What the report has said, and this has come out over the course of the last day or so, is that Manchester United's owners, the Glazers, have confirmed they've put another 9.5 million shares in the club up for sale with a value of, it's just crazy numbers when you talk about this, $186 million, essentially. So 137 million pounds. Now, United notified the New York Stock Exchange of the sale on Tuesday evening in the names of club directors Kevin Glazer and Edward Glazer. Important to note here, none of that money is going to Manchester United or any of the fans or anything like that. The Glazer family will receive all of the money raised by the sale of the shares, with none of it going back into the club. So no investment, but it's been like that since what? 2011, 2012 was the last time the Glazers actually put money into the club. So ignore that. The latest sale is roughly worth about 8% of the Glazers family total combined ownership of the club, which now stands at 69%. Now, I have a theory on this, it must be said. I have a theory, and again, not an economics expert, not a stock market expert. This is my theory on it. And you can judge if this theory is accurate or not. So what have we seen over the last few days? We've seen, obviously, Mike Phelan get a new contract, 3-year deal. We're seeing that McKenna and Carrick, they're going to get new contracts, right? 3-year deals, New Year extensions. And that is seen as a backing of sorts by the board, by the club, saying, we back Ollie. He's got a contract. So we're not going to give him a new one because he just got one in the summer. But when it comes to his coaching staff, we believe in this management team. We believe in this management structure. In my opinion, and I've done my research on this one. So the stock market price went up to $20 per share right as United signed Ronaldo. That was that big spike right at the end of the transfer window. Went to $20 per share. That was the first time it had reached that number. It was the highest number that it had reached since January 2020. So we're talking prior to the pandemic when suddenly everything sort of crashed, the bottom fell out. I think that the Glazers have looked at, say, the upcoming fixtures. They've seen who we're going to play. They've seen Leicester, they've seen Liverpool, they've seen Tottenham, they've seen Man City, they've seen Chelsea, they've seen Arsenal, plus the Champions League games. And I think they've realised, you know what? This could go quite badly, perhaps. It might not, but this could go quite badly. If, say, we lose a lot of these Premier League games, if, say, we go out the Champions League, what's going to happen to that stock price? It will go down. And it won't be at the highest number that it was since January 2020. And they're thinking, right, cash out now. Cash out now. Obviously not everything, but this is the most money we can make if we're going to sell some shares for a long time. And whilst at the same time they're publicly backing Solskjaer and his coaching staff by handing out contracts, I think that they're looking at the stock price and going, you know what, this could go down a little bit soon. So you know what, cash out now. So my point I will put to you, I'll put it to you, Jack, first. Is this a sign of the Glazers publicly backing Solskjaer and his management team, but also thinking, we don't really know how this is going to go out. So maybe we edge our bets. What do you think about that theory?
Yeah, I would 100% tend to agree with you, Owen. I think what we've got to kind of you've got to look at the facts in this. It is very, like, I've been reading several articles from publications, and it is quite the kind of financial figures behind it are quite technical. But if you actually look at face value, I do think there is still a bit of kind of rebuilding trust after the European Super League palaver that happened earlier this year. I think there's a lot of trying to get the fans back on board. However, as you just rightly said, Owen, none of the money Manchester United have racked up over 400 million, £500,000 odd pounds in net debt as of, I think, June this year. None of that money is going to the football club that's going to be sold in the shares anyway. What the Glazers, to my knowledge and what I've researched, is that the shares that are being offered to fans and people that want to buy up these shares are, kind of going to lead to a creation of a fan share scheme. So they will have some, there's like Class A and Class B shares. I don't want this to become an economics lesson because I dropped economics in A-level. I absolutely flunked it. Like, I have no clue about the ins and outs of economic activity. But to my knowledge, the shares represent 8% of what the family actually own, which is 69% of the club. So I think this is almost going a bit, if I'm just getting back to your kind of proposal you set me about what I think on the Glazers selling these shares, I just think it's a smokescreen yet again. I think it's kind of pulling the kind of so-called wool over people's eyes and looking at it from a kind of financial standpoint. I totally agree with you. I think it's a results business, football. It isn't just cliche, it is true. When United go on a losing streak, when something good happens, i.e. we sign Cristiano Ronaldo, we re-sign him, the share price rockets. But yes, 100%, if we were to, say, lose the next 4 or 5 Premier League games in this really tough period of October time, we could be 7th, 8th in the table. What would that do to our share price? It would obviously have a consequential negative effect. But there's a lot left for me to kind of ponder over into, I kind of take my hats off to anyone who wants to buy a share in Manchester United anyway. But I just think this leaves a lot to be desired for me personally. I think the Glazers are still, they're businessmen at the end of the day. And they've got their NFL franchise. Yes, they bought Tom Brady, and we're talking about all the kind of winning the Super Bowl, bringing Ronaldo. Can we win the Premier League this season? But I just, as literally that chat says, £420 million, I've just Googled it, is the net debt we're currently subject to as a football club. And still the money, the 8% that the Glazers are putting on the stock market are not even, the proceeds from that are not even going to Manchester United. What does that say about the ownership and the way the football club at the highest level is being run? I'll pose that question to whoever, because
we know all about the Glazers and
I know that's the thing. We're not gonna.
It's not surprising.
Opinions. No, of course
it's not surprising. No. Cam, this is quite an interesting one though. When obviously the Super League debacle happened earlier this year, obviously Joel Glazer spoke to that United fan forum, or at least he zoomed in. He didn't actually speak to fans, but he zoomed in, kind of did a sort of prepared presentation, and then left. He said that the family would divest itself some shares for the wider sale following these protests that came out of the Super League. Is this a case of the Glazers already going back on this? Oh, yeah, we'll divest some shares. Naturally, the money's just going straight into our pocket. That's not going to happen. Do you ever think we could get to a point under the Glazers' ownership where they start to give shares back to the fans or anything like that? Or is that just a pipe dream?
I think it will happen. I think at some point soon, there's the independent fan review. I think at some point soon in the near future, it will get to a point where fans have to have more of a say in the running of football clubs, because stuff like this, Super League stuff, cannot be allowed to happen. And it is, as much as it looks like it might be dead and buried now, because of the way a lot of the English club owners at least came out and said, we're not doing this anymore. Obviously, the likes of Barca, Real Madrid and Juventus are still sort of working on that stuff behind the scenes. I think there is still a possibility that they go and do it again. So I don't think it's going to be dead and buried until we get a proper structures in place. And because of that, and because of, I think, like politically speaking, the way the whole event just mobilized so many people so quickly. You saw there was tens of thousands of people on the streets at the Chelsea game. People broke into Old Trafford. Nothing sort of winds up people in this country like doing something like that to football. So I think it's just impossible for any government to sit here and not implement any changes, because if this happens again, things will be even worse next time.
Yeah, the Super League thing is just, to me, it just feels like a million years ago already, doesn't it?
Oh,
It feels like a lifetime ago, like that happened. It just, the crazy, it almost feels a bit surreal, doesn't it? It's a super chat directed at you, Jack. Jack, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you dislike Ollie? I'm trying to see something. 1 to 10.
How much? What? I mean, I love Ollie as a person. I'm sure he's a really great guy. But in terms of how much I dislike him being our current manager, I would have to. I'm not going to sit here and say it with chest that I want to, you know, drive up to Manchester and drive Ollie back to Norway. But I'm going to say about 7 or 8.
Oh, nice.
So
I was just doing the maths of
teetering.
what a drive from Manchester to Norway would be like. I
think it might encounter some. Yeah, I don't know. I should Google Maps that actually.
Struggling for petrol anyway, let alone
I know.
to Norway.
Going from I know. You maybe have to sort out some other mode of transport, i.e. a plane. That would probably work.
A better way to travel. We're going to talk about United when it comes to defensive midfielders. Now, this is an interesting one, and I'll go to you, DJ, on this. So Rich Fay of Manchester Evening News put out a report today. I don't know if you saw it on social media. There was quite a few things regarding this whole midfield options for United. He said that part of the reason Manchester United did not sign a midfielder in the summer was because they did not receive a concrete offer for Paul Pogba. United were also unconvinced there was an attainable, quote, game-changing central defensive midfield option in the market. What do you think about that one? Do you think that United didn't buy a central defensive midfielder in the summer because, one, nothing came in for Pogba, and two, because there was nobody out there? This wasn't a game changer out there. What do you think about
that? You know what? I think by this point, us real United fans can know when United are just basically talking shit. To be honest, like it's seriously, they're just talking shit. Like, what they do is they want to just come out of these little prepared statements to cover their own ass, to cover their shortcomings and their failings. And, you know, anybody with half a brain can see what they're doing a mile off. They treat football like WWE. It's all sort of like their statements are so fake. Like, it's just stupid. But we've been saying that, you know, I don't believe them one bit. Sometimes we can sort of preempt what's going to come out in the media from United based off certain rumblings we hear. And that proves a lot, you know, like they're very transparent with these things. We can see it a mile off. But yeah, I just think they're talking rubbish, man, and that's me putting it in a nicer way, because we're not even past the watershed yet. But yeah, like
we're not.
That's me. Yeah, that's me putting it in
evening view.
Evening view. That's me putting it in the most nicest way possible. Like, they're just trying to cover their own ass for their shortcomings. You know, at the end of the day, they said there was no money to spend. They found it quickly when it was time to pay Ronaldo's wages and pay the little fee that they needed to pay. So, yeah, I just think they're just talking rubbish. And, you know, I saw another article about Tchouaméni, how we're not interested in him. I just think, how can you not be interested in him? Not even, I'm not saying buy him, but be interested at least, because look what we have at the moment. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen this other thing that was posted on social media with McFred, how the ratio of their tackling or their defensive contributions to the team are like tier 4. Like, they are well below the rest of the league in the same position. So, you know, there's something needs to be done. They'll say Declan Rice because it's the marquee name and it's attached to Manchester United at the moment. But Declan Rice is a good player, but I still think you can go and get a Tchouaméni that'll be slightly cheaper, and maybe even have a higher ceiling than Rice. So again, it's just United just trying to play silly buggers, to be fair.
Is there any midfielder in the world right now who can fix our problems?
Well, I think this is what's interesting about this when this, because as someone that obviously does a lot of these streams stuff and does the press conferences, this isn't the first time I have heard a report when it comes to United and midfielders and the actual specific thing of game-changing midfielder be used. They have said that 2 or 3 times, which tells you that this story comes directly from the club. Obviously the journalists, Manchester Evening News, they've been briefed on this one because they see that they see how we've been playing, or they see the results or whatever, and they see that people are going, why didn't they sign a defensive midfielder? Obviously they need a defensive midfielder. So obviously the club goes to the journalists and goes, look, there wasn't a game-changing option out there, which, like DJ said, isn't true. There isn't true. There were options out there. What they mean is we didn't want to spend the money this summer. We spent a lot anyway. We bought Sancho, we bought Varane, we bought Ronaldo. We don't want to spend any more money. There were options out there. I mean, you know, there was plenty. I mean, it says on the
there was
screen
Sam
Rice. Yeah, exactly.
Sam Miguez, Chelsea just took €5 million loan fee, and yes, he hasn't had the greatest impact at Chelsea as of yet, but I definitely would have taken a Sam Miguez like right at the end of the window, 100%. It would have been. Cam's talking about, like, I totally agree with Cam. Like, I don't think if you look at a kind of someone that fits the United mould, I probably wouldn't say there's a lot of players readily available in that position out there now. But you're looking at Declan Rice. Like, I've seen about this £100 million price tag. That's the kind of price you're going to have to pay. It's a premium. It's an English tax that is put on Premier League players. I know we might be, you know, I don't personally believe Declan Rice is a £100 million player, and I think you guys have the same, you know, similar opinions, but that's the kind of price we're going to have to pay if we want to get someone in of his kind of ilk and stature, like in the Premier League as such. But I totally agree with Cam. Like, there's not many players out there that could actually. Basuma, we're talking about, yeah, but Basuma's, it's making the step up. We've spoken about it so many times. It's making the step up from Brighton to Manchester United and playing at a bigger club. It's totally different.
Yeah, but it's also playing a team where that job is so difficult.
Well, I was going to say,
yes,
I'll turn it back on you, Cam. Who would you say if say they're looking for the game? We use their words against them. Game-changing defensive midfielder. Who would you say is the game-changing central midfielder for Manchester United?
United are funny.
I mean, I think it's a stupid phrase, isn't it? How often do you see defensive midfielders scoring that many goals? The whole point is they're supposed to be going about their work quietly. If they're calling you defensive mid game-changing, that's a problem. I mean, and I think as well, the other reason that they're using the word game-changing is because they clearly know how bad the problem is there. The only reason we're playing McTominay and Fred, they're not good on the ball. Everybody knows they're not good on the ball. Solskjaer knows they're not good on the ball. He constantly says they bring energy, they can tackle. The reason they have to do all of that is because the rest of the stuff, defending as a team, is awful. The amount of times teams break through our front line so easily, McTominay and Fred are having to scramble everywhere. It's no surprise that their dual success is bad because, as was it Jack mentioned earlier, the tier 4 thing. It's no surprise their dual success is bad because they're having to sprint 30 yards to get to every single one. Whereas if you look at like a Brighton or somewhere, Basuma, he's normally not going to be too far away from where the duel is. Yes, he's quick enough that he can get there, but the attributes a midfielder needs to fix United's midfield problem, they've got to be the fastest player in the world. So you need to have basically athleticism, but then you also have to be good enough to stick it exactly in your position. So I don't know how you can be that athletic, constantly running, but also in the right place to be an anchor. Then also be the best passer the world's ever seen to actually pass that ball forwards to the lack of options and static runners that we got. I mean, I can't think of anyone that can do all of that. If you guys can, then, well...
That's what they're looking for. That's what they're looking for. Game changer. Game changer, aka they don't exist. They don't exist. But like on FIFA, you know when you put all of those add-ons to like one player and you turn one of those players it's like from the conference.
It's like creating
rated on everything.
Yes, they're trying to create a pro. Yeah, it's mad. Now, but just one more thing, Owen, on that. Like, I would have to say though, like on the whole CDM thing, I would still take a Basuma now, even though I've said what I've said now. Like, Basuma is better than what we've got already. Like, in terms of we're persisting with McFred, Basuma's better, so get Basuma. I don't know why we're holding out. You know, DJ literally said it about a lack of money. Well, you know, we were in financial kind of trouble, obviously, with the pandemic. We went out and bought Sancho and Varane, you know, for a combined, 100-odd million. Got Ronaldo in. Obviously, the loan fee was in the region of 25-30 million. Like, we've got the money like available. I just think there's kind of mismanagement at, you know, John Murtagh, all the people that run the kind of recruitment side of things maybe didn't really look. They just wanted the whole, because Jadon Sancho was someone we persisted with for so long. So it was get him in. It'll be a feel-good factor. Obviously, Ronaldo was a mate. Like, we were all absolutely gassed with Ronaldo. I'm not doubting that whatsoever. But I almost feel like Sancho came in, Varane followed. You know, CDM's the final piece of the puzzle. But the Glazers want that to be a big game-changing signing. But, you know, who's out there? Who's out there, boys? Like,
Jack,
you know,
Jack, I'll tell you one thing, right? The last season, right? We said they said United turned around and said there was no money, right? Cool. I would have believed that until they went and spent, 40-odd million on Ahmad and then 34 million for Donny.
37 mil on Ahmad, yeah.
Or whatever.
True, yeah.
Like, literally, like, and that money combined is enough to have brought you a CDM that season, like then. So United, they're just full of it, man. It's just BS.
No, that's true. Actually, I didn't even think of that. That's
exactly
Ahmad,
right. Yeah. They're just BS. It's just BS at the moment. And you know what? I think they have to get this, whatever side, whoever we bring in, they have to get this one right, because as we've seen, there's a massive hole in our team. You know, I've seen people on social media calling us Donut FC and all these other names, and they're half right. Like literally, like McTominay and Fred, they're terrible in the middle of the park. They're actually terrible. Like, and it's got to the point now where we can't control games. We can't get a stranglehold of games because our midfield is so weak. So whoever they sign, they've got to do their due diligence and sign the correct type of player for that position. And sometimes you need to spend big to get the premium. And if we need a premium player, they're going to have to do that.
But doesn't this all just come back to coaching? Because whatever players you put in that midfield, you can put better players like Pogba or Matic in that midfield. But whoever you put Matic with in that midfield, if he's left, then we've gone and pressed. The front four are off on their own, pressing by themselves, spread out across the pitch. Matic is then the anchor, fine, but then he's got to be covering the entire back four, the whole width of the pitch by himself. Can't do it. McTominay and Fred, you put them together, they can do that, but they can't pass the ball forward. Yep. It's not one player that's going to solve this. The problem is we can't play as a team. There's too many things wrong. It's not the individual players that are the problem. It's the system as a team. It does not work well.
Yeah, and Jack mentioned Basuma, and one thing I will say about Basuma is I reckon Basuma could go to another top team with an actual good coach and become so much levels than he is already. He's got so much potential. And he could literally step up levels and levels with the correct coaching and with the correct system. I agree with Cam. I agree with Cam a lot.
I mean, Basuma would go to Liverpool very easily. That midfield, I mean, it's like that Liverpool midfield, aside from Thiago, none of them are that good on the ball, but they've got a way of playing that means they don't have to be. They've got a lot, their chance creation comes from their fullbacks.
Yeah.
And then we all know that as soon as Liverpool lose the ball, they're pressing right on it. Sometimes they even just put a cross into an area where they know they're not going to win it, just so they can then go press, win it back, and score 5 seconds later.
But in terms of that player, like Liverpool have got that Fabinho to screen the back four. Like even Matic is the closest we've got to that. But I totally agree. Like he hasn't got it in his legs no more. Like he wouldn't be able to do that consistently. 90 minutes week in, week out, and that's the type of player we need. But another thing I just want to say is it does come back. I don't want to keep being like, slandering kind of the coaching setup and McKenna and Carrick, but I guarantee, even if we go and do this, boys, get a CDM and complete the Man United puzzle, because our team would be we get the midfield pivot. I am still
a game changer.
With a game changer, right? Exactly. I am a game changer. That's actually a joke when you think about it. Game changer. Like this isn't like, this is some Americanized term. Like I'm not really. It just doesn't sit with me. But I think we could go and get that midfield pivot sorted. I just don't believe we're going to, with the current coach we've got now. It's not really going to make tons and tons of difference for me in terms of the individuals will play better, but I just feel like in terms of winning trophies and being successful, the system isn't there. I still think even if we go and get a Declan Rice in the summer, I don't think a lot's really going to change from a coaching standpoint, definitely.
I'll tell you what, I miss Herrera right now. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I saw loads of videos about Herrera because obviously
I do miss him. Yeah, I miss this guy.
I've seen that one. Yeah,
but what wasn't Herrera like? You know, Herrera was just kind of
he did it all.
But he was just kind of like he became like an outcast. He went to PSG, and we were all kind of like, oh, we're moving on. If anything, like he's moved on in his own way, and we're kind of moving backwards.
Would you describe him as a defensive midfielder either? I would say.
I'd say more box to box. He's more box to box Herrera anyway. But I totally agree with all the boys' points. I think we're still in an absolute rut. I don't want to be negative, but I have thought about it more. And I think these international breaks, you've got to sit here and really dwell on things. Like we might be where we are in the league. No, we do. I mean, we do. We've got to sit here, mate, and really, it's
the saddest thing. The saddest thing is that, you know, I've said it before. I do not see Ollie getting any better in coaching now. I think he's reached as best as he can. He'll make some adjustments, sure, but in terms of coaching masterclasses and getting United to play system after system, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Like, I don't care how long he's in the job for. It's not going to happen. But the thing is, he still has good players who are capable of winning games. So when we're winning games, it's just going to overshadow and paper over the cracks, as Owen likes to say. It's going to paper over those cracks of United have no system or style of play. And it's just going to rumble on and on and on. And we'll be here talking about the same thing
It is so true.
The scoreline.
But make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss it when we do.
There you
by
go.
the way.
And the scoreline, which I choose for every United game now, is 2-1 because it's very indicative of how we play. 2-1 because we'll concede and we may just get the last goal at the end of the game. Like we'll score 2 goals, like, and that's about it. So yeah.
The thing I don't get is how every other coach, you look at Jose Mourinho, he had Rui Ferreira by his side for so many years. Jurgen Klopp had an assistant that he's had for so long, since the early days. They all seem to have one assistant, at least one, who's a little bit more experienced, better tactically, but got at least one thing that are really good at coaching. Like Klopp's assistant, I can't remember his name, but he left, I think, last year.
Yeah. They call him like
he's really good at coaching pressing. What have United got? Carrick and McKenna, they might be fantastic young coaches. They might be, who knows, in 20 years' time, they might become that. But they're not that yet. They're not there yet. And if all they've got to learn off is Ole, who's realistically not got the best of CVs, it's not a good start. They just need one experienced voice in there. Mike Phelan's in there, but he's not the greatest tactical mind. And he's said himself, his condition for going to United was that he didn't do any of the coaching on the training pitch himself. There's no one on that training pitch who's been doing it for long enough. No one on that training pitch who's the best in the world at what they do. If that's what we want from the players, why isn't it what we want from the coaches as well?
No, but I would seriously love to be a fly on the wall in a Man United training session, because I almost feel like Ollie kind of gives the players the responsibility to go out and try. Like, I'm not saying he's not completely like that stupid, but I almost feel like, as Cam says, like, even our assistants, like McKenna's done wonders with the academy. I'm not gonna if you follow Kieran McKenna, like, you know what he's done with the 18s, you know what he's done with the 21s, etc. He's done wonders, but the step up is huge. And I think Phelan's great to have in as a kind of what he's done previously at the football club, and great to have that kind of educated head on. But we haven't got, when you're head and your boss is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think DJ raised the point last time, Owen, about kind of Ole's not necessarily a bad coach in his entirety, but Manchester United is a massive job. Like, you can't just go in half-hearted. Like, this has got to be really like, you have to think tactically every single game. When teams sit a low block, how do you deal with that? When we want to press, how do we deal with pushing our fullbacks further up the pitch? Because I'd like to see more of that. How do we deploy using our wingers, because we've got so many attacking talents on the wings? How do we, like, I don't think Ollie has them questions going through his mind as much as he should be. Yeah, definitely.
And with Ollie,
let me just get to super chats quickly. Get to super chats quickly. JK says any competent DM is better than Fred. South Fred. And super chat from Nate says, I honestly think Rashi coming back might be even worse for Ollie, depending on him to create individual moments instead of playing good team football. Briefly, before DJ, you say what you're going to say, because it kind of does lean into what we were talking about nicely, talking about coaching, talking about the midfield options or the game changers that are not out there, apparently. There was this report by Laurie Whitwell, and came out sort of yesterday-ish, and it was saying that basically Michael Carrick, Kieran McKenna are reportedly working with Scott McTominay on the discipline and passing required to operate as the sole sitter. So because that game-changing midfielder isn't out there, basically Carrick and McKenna are working with McTominay because you're going to be that guy. DJ, continue what you were going to say, but also, can McTominay be that guy?
So, yeah, I was going to say, just before we got onto the McTominay thing, was I would be very impressed with Ollie if he turned around and, I know it sounds harsh, and sacked his actual coaching staff, because what I think, it sets a really bad precedent in world football if you're, you know, giving jobs to your mates. Like, I really don't think that's correct. Like, furthermore, we should be just how you get a normal job. Here's your CV. Let me see your body of work. All right, you fit. We're looking for this type of coach. Okay, you've got the CV from Ajax. You've got the CV from Italy. You've got the CV from wherever. But as long as the person is qualified, top-notch qualified, with good experience, let them come in and do the job. So that's all I'll say of Ollie. If he was to sack his coaching staff and bring new guys in, I can't lie, I might just jump back on the Ollie in train. Touching on McTominay, flip-flop FC. But touching on McTominay, no, he can't do it. No. I don't think he's no, he can't. I think he would work better as a football player with a better coach. I think you would see him maybe be a bit more functional, be a bit more effective. But in terms of the role we want him to play, he cannot grow that technique overnight. You either got it or you don't. We want him to be able to receive the ball off the back four, pivot in the midfield, have control of the ball, sort of be like Matic. You know, Matic, even though he's older, he controls the ball better. He can pick a pass. He can kind of move forward through the lines, even if it's at a snail pace, but he still manages to get through. McTominay is not going to do that. McTominay is all about blood and guts, arriving in the box late, flying into challenges. That's his game. We're trying to turn him into something that he clearly is not, and he doesn't have the technique level, in my humble opinion, to do that role. So it's a no from me.
What do you think, Cam? Can McTominay be... Well, first of all, are the coaches... I guess it's a two-pronged question. Are the coaches capable of turning Scott McTominay into a defence midfielder? And two, is he capable of doing that even with the best coaches around him?
I mean, I don't think he's capable of doing it, to be honest. I think, as DJ said, he's better flying forward. I think he was a striker in the academy, and we saw when he gets space in front of him, when he can carry the ball forward, he's actually pretty good at doing that. I think for me, in a settled United team, we'd want to see a defensive midfielder alongside Pogba and Bruno in midfield. And then in that situation, you probably put McTominay as Pogba's rotation as the sort of option that can get forward, plays in occasional games when Pogba's injured or whatever, but doesn't really start more than maybe 10, 15 games a season for United, especially in the league. Is he good enough to be able to pass the ball, collect it off the back four and pass the ball forwards? Well, at the moment, no, because he, if you see the way he receives the ball, he's constantly sort of his hips pointing back towards his own goal. Like, you can't pivot and turn on that. And he constantly likes to sort of hide in pockets and not actually show for the ball, which is really frustrating, because if that's your only link then between the defence and between your two, if you're playing that midfield, you have two options further forward, you're not going to be able to get the ball into them. So I don't see what they're thinking with that. I think if they're doing anything, they need to be setting Matic up to do it, because yes, he moves at a snail's pace, but he's the only one in that team who can actually pass that ball forward reliably between the lines. And again, though, it comes back to being an impossible job, because as a defensive midfielder, you're responsible for providing the balance in the team. You've got to be constantly organising people, telling people where to go. And let's say if we're pressing and the press gets broken, you're the one that's got to sweep it up. But the problem is, at the moment, everything's so disjointed, so disorganised, that it is essentially impossible. Because when we press, we don't seem to press on specific triggers. Bruno just, let's say, messes up a pass, gets annoyed, goes sprinting off after someone. Maybe someone else follows, maybe not. And then also we seem to be, rather than what you see a lot of the top teams do, where City, as soon as they lose the ball, they've already got 2 or 3 players in close proximity ready to win it back straight away. United, we seem to have our wingers constantly right out wide. We've got obviously Ronaldo in the centre, Bruno just behind. They're too far away to press straight away. They try and press. By the time they've pressed, the ball's 20 yards up the pitch, which is why we constantly see. We're constantly like, wait, hang on. How's the ball got there? We lost it 2 seconds ago. It's already near our own goal. It's bad. And I think if you're trying to get a defensive midfielder to do that, the rest of the team's got to be much more functional. You can't be pressing the whole pitch at the same time. It just doesn't work. The gaps are too big. Teams will break it, because Premier League teams are at a good standard. Champions League teams are at a good standard. You can't be expecting to get away with that. And I think it's embarrassing, to be honest, that they've not seen it and rectified it, because it's been a problem ever since Ole took over.
And this is the thing. This is why I love having Cam here, because he just breaks it down, even for those people that are
so good, isn't he?
Yeah, and you know the people out there that are like, "Why are you guys getting on Ole's back? It's an agenda." It's not an agenda. I can promise you that we love Manchester United. It's not an agenda, it's just the hard, cold facts that Ole is not the best coach in the world, or he's not one of the best coaches in the world, and it clearly shows with how we play. Like, seriously, like some of our team defending, it's a shambles, man. Even though we've got Varane at the back, it's a shambles.
Yeah. My opinion, and I've seen this go a lot around certain news publications. Actually, even kind of before the season started, it was just kind of offering up something. But I almost do agree with it. Ole, I would say, wants to make McTominay into the kind of Roy Keane mould. He wants to kind of fit him into that kind of Keane engine room type of midfielder. Now, I totally agree with Cam's points in terms of, I think McTominay's definitely got the ability to be a very competent squad player for United. But in terms of actually playing in a midfield pivot, he is a lot more pragmatic and forward-thinking midfield player. He almost sometimes, like, he does like operate as a box-to-box midfielder, so, because he's constantly obviously Cam will know the kind of tactical insight behind this more, but when I watch him play personally, like, McTominay, you know, there is a lot of space left in behind, and the only play we've got at the football club. Sorry, no, I was literally just reading that. I knew that was going to be about Ollie. But yeah, as DJ literally said earlier, there is no doubt in his attacking desire, his well, you don't necessarily need that in a defensive midfielder, but his tenaciousness, his desire, his effort levels in Scott McTominay. But if we're putting him in a kind of Roy Keane ilk, the reason I'm laughing is not because I'm laughing at Scott McTominay's ability. It's the fact we're comparing, or certain publications, and I've seen on social media the same, comparing him to kind of wanting to fit that Roy Keane mould. They're not even in the same, they're not even on the same planet. And that's no disrespect to Scott McTominay. It's just that we need a more settled holding midfield player, not someone who's going to be more box to box. And I feel like McTominay, I don't know about you lads as well, like, do you not think that he doesn't even really know like what kind of midfielder he is, like game to game? Like, I don't know what you boys think, but
is that on him though? Is it on him, or is that because he's being asked to do so many different roles? I mean, one game he's going to be a box to box. The next game, it's suddenly he's being coached to being a defensive midfielder. Next game, you know, I agree with you. Sometimes you don't really know. There's still a conversation now, isn't there? What is Scott McTominay? Is he box to box? Is he a central midfielder?
Yes,
is he a defensive midfielder? But again, I think that's because he gets asked to do these different jobs all the time. I mean, this is why I kind of think the story has a bit of credibility as well, not just because it's from Laurie Whitwell on The Athletic, but also we saw him basically do this against Villarreal. He was the defensive midfielder in that game because Pogba was playing higher up. It was just McTominay. And like Cam mentioned earlier, he got overrun so badly because, and it wasn't even necessarily his fault so much, because he had all this space to cover. He just couldn't do it. It was impossible for him to do it.
Yeah. Do you know what I think?
It's space left in behind that exposes us so much. Because Varane and Maguire, like, well, more so Maguire, I'm not even going to put Varane in that thinking, but I would say more in the past, since kind of there've been a partnership, I'd say Maguire's actually, DJ always does this.
Always, every time, dramatic. And he was going to make a point. Dramatic.
No, I'm going to let DJ, I've literally lost my train of thought. Cam can pick this up. Yeah, I was like, space left in behind, because DJ always just has to drop out from time to time, you know.
Yeah, this is what we're saying though, like what we were saying a minute ago. It's just like, look at Liverpool. As soon as the ball gets into their midfield, they've got three players. Fabinho, you know he's always going to be anchoring. You've got Henderson, you've got, well, Wijnaldum last season, Thiago now, that you know they're going to be sweeping up straight away. You're going to have someone on you. United just leave that area exposed. City, instead of having midfielders there, if De Bruyne and Bernardo are really high, City will just put their fullbacks in that area. United just leave that area completely empty. Someone's got to make a decision and say, we'll do this. This is how we deal with it. But we don't see it. Go on, DJ.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, just literally, and this is directly to Manchester United, right? And this is a message from me, DJ. Literally,
love that.
Yeah, you'll leave in a second.
Yeah.
This is a message from me. See you later.
See you later.
Yeah.
I was just wanted to say that what I'm seeing United do is, what they want to do is recreate sort of like teams of the past year. They get like for likes, right? So they bring players in and say, oh, McTominay is going to be the next Roy Keane. Oh, Rashford's going to be the next Ronaldo. We need to sort of like cut that out. Like, football is different now and it changes. So the same style of play back then isn't going to necessarily work now. Football changes every year to 2 years, every time. There's always something new. There's always a new wrinkle in tactics that teams are using and finding to use. And I think we just still are stuck back in the glory days. I'm sorry to say, we need to sort of like get our head out of our own arse and start actually updating with the times. Ooh. Old Trafford hadn't even had a lick of paint for how long, right? Carrington hadn't been upgraded in how long? Like, they're just so old. We're old dinosaurs still clinging on to past fame. What we need to do is get with the times. We're watching our neighbours City flourish with the times. They're updating. They're constantly on the lookout for new talent, whether that be behind the scenes players, it could be coaching staff, it could be scouting staff. And we're still stuck in this old dinosaur mentality because a few rich men want to play greedy with the club. Like, enough's enough. Like, we need to start seeing proper recruitment on all levels, not just players. We need to see it in all levels: coaching staff, backroom staff, scouts, all of that good stuff. So yeah, I just needed to say that, because what's happening now, we're seeing it take effect on the pitch. We're having players, oh yeah, I grew up watching Roy Keane. You're not Roy Keane, mate. You're not. You're just not. Like, Roy Keane played in a different league. It was a different time. Yeah, the football was different. Different rivals even back then. Like, we just need to update and upgrade a lot, and I don't see us doing it.
No, just quickly as well. Like, on the kind of I just want to echo literally what DJ said, because it brings me on to my next point. Is the academy I'm not worried about. Like, I look at the academy now, and we're talking about recruitment and the youth. United have always been good at that. And you look at the players up and coming now in certain positions. You've got Hannibal, top player, Shaw Atiro, top player, Ethan Galbraith, CDM, like Ethan Laird's been out on loan, played in the Football League. Like, if you actually look at United's youngsters, I'm not worried about that, but they are not ready. James Garner's another great example. He's been on loan to various Championship clubs, played out at Watford and Forest last season. They're not ready for the here and now. I think United we pride ourselves on our youth. It's great that we've got this historic academy. We've had these academy graduates constantly being a match day squad, I think, since the 1930s or whatever, that insane stat in the Premier League. But I totally echo DJ, and I think that's a good kind of way to kind of summarise where the club is at the moment, is that we've got owners that, yes, they do from time to time pull out that big marquee signing, but on the whole, are we the long-term future of Manchester United? I don't know about you boys, and I understand literally what we were saying about the fan-led review, and I definitely think government will have to kind of come in terms of that ownership of clubs and how it's done from overseas, etc. But I would still sit here now and not be able to give you a definitive answer as to how Manchester United's going to look 5 years down the line. Like, I know what our squad's going to look like, but I don't know how the football club kind of evolves, because I totally agree with DJ. The majority of my mates who support other clubs say, oh, you're a United fan, you just prize yourself on your history. And to be fair, they're not wrong. Like, the reason I support the club I do is because of our recent, and I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm not a glory hunter. Like, a lot of us, we sat here.
You know what's depressing with that, though? You know what's depressing with that? Growing up, right? Growing up,
we used to say that year after year, going into
you said about Liverpool fans growing up. People used to say that about Liverpool fans. When I was growing up, they used to always say that, oh, Liverpool, you just play on your history, you ain't won shit. And now it's kind of the same.
They're constantly saying it to us. They're saying, you're rubbish now. Like, you're third in the Prem. What have you won? What have you got to show for it? Ultimately, we haven't won a major trophy since 2013. We've won the Europa League. We've won the League Cup. But Manchester United's DNA is not winning them types of trophies. It's winning the big trophies. And I totally echo what DJ says. I think there's so much uncertainty still around the kind of football club and its progression, not just under the Glazer family, but just from a kind of coaching and recruitment standpoint, in terms of players that are ready to come in now, and not, because I would say the youth is fine. The youth is fine. I'm not bothered about that. But you can't expect players like McTominay to come in and do a Roy Keane, because, as you know, it's different. It's completely different fundamentals to how Roy Keane played back then, and how you expect McTominay to come in now. McTominay's still so young. I just think it's really quite worrying, actually, that the more I think about it, it's quite worrying how uncertain, and how I'm just a little bit like, I don't really know. It's all about the manager as well. But you look higher up, like, what's to come for Manchester United? Because I've gone on a bit of a waffle here, but it is literally just my heart pouring out my emotion now.
That's what you said. You've got to dwell on these things during the international break. It is what it is.
You've got to dwell.
We were only going to go like 45 minutes tonight. We've only gone an hour. So unbelievable effort, guys. Unbelievable effort. But we will wrap things up here because there's international games on. Was a Nations League semi-final
tonight. Yeah, Italy-Spain tonight.
Italy-Spain, which is going to be an interesting one. But as always, we'll do a bit of a wrap around, see where the guys can find you on social media. Start off with you, Jack. Where can they find you?
At Jack Mirko UTB on Twitter, and at _ Jack Mirko on Instagram.
Cam, what about yourself? At Statman Cam.
Oh, we've lost Cam's audio.
He's muted.
Oh, that's.
There we go. Nice and easy.
At Statman Cam, absolutely. DJ, what about yourself?
DJ Talks _ You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. And as I always say, I like to get in the mud with you guys and your views. So please, I'm active on Twitter. Get at me, and we can carry on this discussion.
He does. He absolutely does. He even posted a picture of himself sort of looking upset and sad.
Loved it. Loved it. That was such a good photo.
Like that. It's like international break got me feeling like this. It's top tier content, that is. That's something you ain't going to find with me. Don't even bother following me. I occasionally tweet. about stuff, and then I can't be bothered after that. So it's what it is. But thanks very much for joining us, guys. As always, be sure to smash a like on the like button, subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Even though it's an international week, there's going to be plenty of content coming up, and we'll all speak for you again very, very soon.